Guys, let's go on over to email number 2. And email number 2 comes from Catherine, who lives right here in New York City. Hello, Catherine. She says, "Yo! Dot dot dot. Francis Ford Coppola is releasing a new cut of Godfather 3. Chris, have you heard this? Is this news to you?"
I had just heard this
I
recently.
think it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So she says he's releasing a new cut of Godfather 3. I can't tell if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Why do directors always go back and tinker with their stuff? Just leave it alone. Having said that, Godfather 3 wasn't the best. So, dot, dot, dot. Catherine, thanks so much for sending this in. And yeah, Deadline is reporting that Francis Ford Coppola is throwing together a new cut of Godfather Part 3. Now, this is going to get a theatrical cut as well as a video-on-demand release. Did I say theatrical cut? A theatrical release as well as a... we already had the theatrical cut. And, yeah. To your question, though, Catherine, you ask, why do directors always do this? Well, first of all, I don't think directors always do this. I think the vast majority of directors, they put out their work, it is what it is, and, you know, for the most part, they're happy with their finished product. There have been a few directors over the years that have, you know, kind of wanted to tinker. George Lucas was notorious for this. There are multiple iterations of the Star Wars film, of the original Star Wars films, and I think, you know, as I talk about George Lucas, I think he's one of those directors that has exacerbated the issue for people. I don't think the problem so much is that directors go back and, you know, tinker with their films. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola did, a different cut of Apocalypse Now. Ridley Scott has done, a couple of takes on both, what was it, Blade Runner, and I think there were 3 different Blade Runner cuts, and, what was the Alien? I think he did a alternate cut of Alien. So it's not tons of directors that go through and tinker with their things, but when you get a director like George Lucas who will tinker with things and then put, you know, statute of limitations or actual legalities on the release of the original theatrical cut, that's something that I'm still waiting for. Thanks to George Lucas, we won't get it while he's alive. In his lifetime, he probably is not going to allow a theatrical cut of Star Wars Empire or Return of the Jedi on Blu-ray or, HD whatever quality, 4K quality. He won't allow that. And that is incredibly frustrating. And I think, if I may put words in your mouth for a minute there, Catherine, I think that might be the spirit of the question that you're asking. Like, why do directors go through and tinker with their things, with their movies? I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Directors, they're kind of in control. As long as the studio will allow them to go back and, they will pay the money or spend the money, rather, to make a different cut available, sometimes it can improve the quality of the film. Chris, do you have a different take on this? Where do you stand with directors tinkering with their films?
I think it's always a big gamble, particularly like when Blade Runner was getting tinkered with. I was like, why in the world would you tinker with Blade Runner? But it's not a bad cut. I think when people ask to me that question is, if any of us had directed something at the level of Godfather and we thought that maybe the third one wasn't up to snuff, any of us would do it if we thought we could get away with it. Why wouldn't you? You have hindsight. You can go back and think about where you might have made some different choices. And all of that. So I'm fine. I'm glad he's doing it, especially if you love Godfather. The Godfather 3 wasn't that great, although it did, introduce some great actors and things that went on to have long careers. So I don't have a problem with it. And if you really look at it historically, there's really, you may know this and educate me because I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but I don't really recall a director doing a recut where it was dramatically worse than the film that they were trying to recut.
I think cases can be made for Blade Runner because there are 3 different versions of that film. I know there was one of and I don't remember which was which, but
I'm just thinking about the first take, like when the director did one where basically the public consensus was, wow, man, You really should have left that thing alone. Because usually the directors that actually have the pull to do a recut are not shoddy directors to begin with.
Agreed.
You know, like if Steven Spielberg tells me he
Agreed.
wants to do a recut of E.T., you know, whatever. Yeah, man, go ahead. You're freaking Steven Spielberg. I think this new Justice League recut worries me a little bit because I think that's ego. Because Justice League is not that good. It's not
Well,
suicide
I
level
think
bad, but like that to me is like
Justice
possibly
League
ego.
is a
So, but I'm
very different
hoping it's
scenario,
good.
though. Justice League is a very different scenario
Right.
because of all the, you know, why Zack Snyder had to leave the production, right?
I do, and now I
Uh,
don't. I feel like I knew a year ago, and now I've forgotten it
so
out of
his
my
daughter
brain.
committed suicide. And so both
Okay.
he and his wife left the production. Warner Brothers hired Joss Whedon to finish the film, and Joss Whedon took the movie in a very different direction. The Justice League that we got in the theater is a very, very, very different version of Justice League than what Zack Snyder had imagined. And the
Right.
fans kind of created this whole big hullabaloo and saying, like, um, okay, but we want to see the Zack Snyder cut. And Zack Snyder already
Sure.
had a version, you know, kind of put together based on all the stuff that he had filmed. So he had his version that he wanted to release, but, you know, the money wasn't there to finish, you know, the special effects, finish, you know, the post-production and, you know, all that stuff. So now they're spending, was it like $90 million, I think, to finish the Zack Snyder version of Justice League and get his version. So really, like, Justice League is the kind of film that the fans made happen, which,
Yeah, and I want to see the recut
yeah,
because I like Justice League. And also, I mean, again, this goes back to a studio decision. Like, I like Joss Whedon and I like Snyder. They're just totally different directors. So,
they
you know,
are.
it feels like a studio choice to where, I mean, come on, the Avengers film's fine. You know, he's solid. But if you're bringing in a certain kind of director, they weren't bringing in a director to bring in that vision. So I'm excited to see what that vision, what looks like.
I agree. Anyway, guys, what do you think about The Godfather 3? Is this the first time that you're hearing of it? Do you think that Francis Ford Coppola can fix a few things that, you know, maybe he didn't get quite right the first time around? Are you, you know, one side or the other? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.